the economy, listen to them. Stop talking about democracy being at stake. Democracy is at stake because people are fighting so much about what elections mean.
Didn't listen to voters. Assuming tomorrow goes as we think it will. That was a Democrat strategist there, Hillary Rosen, and what she's saying is totally true. It is obvious. We have been saying it here for many weeks now, but the numbers are all trending, and the reality is settling in here that running a midterm campaign almost exclusively on the insurrection, you have to say it that way, Clay. Those are the rules.
Yes.
And also abortion is just, it was political malpractice. It should have been obvious to Democrats all along that that wasn't going to work, given where the economy is going and what's going on with crime. I think it's interesting to see how this is playing out. I mean, one thing, Clay, we had over the weekend, did you see? We're at the Democrat shooting guns phase of the electoral process here, where all of a sudden Tim Ryan in Ohio holding a pistol the way that most people would hold a tissue that they had to pick up off the ground of an airport bathroom. It's like, ew, I'm holding a pistol. That's the gun shooting Democrats all of a sudden to try to win in Georgia, Ohio, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and the Tim Ryan video that's intriguing to me, I don't claim to be a gun expert, but there are huge...
He is not either, I can tell you.
But there are huge... But I grew up in the South where people are around guns all the time. But there are huge cadres of people that work on Republican campaigns who, if they had a candidate that looked like that firing a gun, would say, delete the video, right? We're not going to allow that to see the light of day. He is so surrounded by people who are so out of touch there that they thought, hey, this is going to help his overall appeal. And what I have seen a lot of during this campaign is there have been a lot of unforced errors on both sides, just in terms of what videos you choose to put up. And I think it speaks to the need and necessity for candidates to be surrounded by people who just understand what normalcy is. I'm big on, hey, JBN, just be normal. This is one of my things why I love being on the road. Didn't enjoy the result. Congratulations, Georgia Bulldog fans, on whipping my Tennessee Volunteers. Last night, Buck, when you came over to visit the house, what was I doing? Watching the Chiefs-Titans game, and then I drove you back to the hotel.
Did the Titans pull it out, by the way? Because I went to bed. I don't even know.
Do you know Allie? Yeah, Allie knows. We lost in overtime.
No!
Yes.
My beloved Titans?
Your beloved Titans that you didn't know the result of the game. But I was driving Buck and our producer to the hotel back from last night during the game. I had to go pick up a kid at the airport, too. And so I was crushed. By the time I got home, it's 11 o'clock, losing overtime. And
it's probably best that we weren't at Castle Clay for the sad moments there, because we were there when things were looking good.
Things looked very good when we were out there.
Your point about Ryan, by the way, I mean, he really is. He's holding that pistol like someone who would be holding a machine laser gun bazooka or something. It's the first time I think that guy has fired a gun in a very long time. And look. I mean, I'm not a gun expert. It's not that. It's just funny that right before the pandering is the point here, right?
Right.
John
it's
Kerry,
Dukakis in the tank.
Barack Obama, Tim Ryan. These are guys who show up who are like, oh yeah, I like the sticks that go bang bang too. I like the guns that fire the things. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, and it's the same thing when politicians try to pretend that they care about sports teams and then they mispronounce the players' names or don't seem to understand the teams at all. Just be normal. And sometimes you may not like something that everybody else likes, and that's normal too. Don't try to fake it.
Authenticity. I think it's funny because in the social media era, a lot of people, I mean, we see this. You can think back. You remember Elizabeth Warren's, I'm going to get me a beer. And everyone's like, has this woman
ever had a beer in the house?
Is she just used to having the servants bring the caviar and the champagne? Does she have no idea? It just wasn't a good look for her. I'm going to get me a beer. But unforced errors, because I did want to get to this one, because this was quite an unforced error. Biden, it's weird, right? Because everyone knows Biden is a drag on the party right now. And we're not going to debate whether he's going to run again right now. We're going to focus on the midterms. But he is a drag on the party, and some of us are starting to sweat whether or not our bets are going to come through with him running again. But Clay, he has to go and do some speeches and do some stumping, especially in blue strongholds, right? So New York, what's he in Maryland today, right?
Maryland and Virginia.
Maryland and Virginia. Virginia, which felt like it was very blue, but now with Youngkin and some of the trends, it's looking more purple than it used to, for sure, or than it had in recent elections. But here is Joe Biden speaking at this point in time about coal and what he thinks about coal plants while he's pretty close to coal country. Play it.
So it's going to become a wind generation. And all they're doing is going to save them a hell of a lot of money, and using the same transmission line they transmitted the coal-fired electric on. We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar.
We are going to be shutting these coal plants down all across America. First of all, they're mostly along, you're looking at the East Coast, you're looking at West Virginia and Pennsylvania and areas where this electricity production is still substantial. One thing that hasn't gotten enough attention right now, Clay, you don't realize that right now, heating oil in New York, we're heading into a winter. It's been really warm up in the Northeast, but it's about to get real cold. Heating oil is the most expensive it has ever been.
Yeah.
There are retailers in Connecticut who are rationing heating oil because they're worried about hoarding. Remember the toilet paper early in COVID? It's that, but with heating oil they're worried about right now. New England stockpiles of diesel, super low. I spoke to a friend of mine who's in the import-export business just actually this morning, texted me saying they're just getting, like, shipments are either super delayed or canceled because they don't have the diesel necessary for shipping. People in the colder parts of the country are about to have one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive winters in memory, trying to keep themselves warm enough, and Joe Biden's talking about shutting coal plants.
Well, and General Baldock has been talking about this in his closing argument in New Hampshire, and that, by the way, make sure if you're a New Hampshireite, a Granite Stater, that you get out and vote not only for General Baldock, but also for our friend Caroline Levitt in New Hampshire 1, which is going to be a tight race. He said people are having to make the choice. Do you want to be heating your family's home, or do you want to be eating? Because the cost of food is up so much and the cost of heat is up so much, many people in a state like New Hampshire are not going to be able to afford both. And when we come back, Buck, Joe Manchin went after Joe Biden for those comments. And I've got a theory about what's going to happen in West Virginia. But Biden, Buck, is the best advocate Republicans have right now, because effectively saying you're doing away with coal with tight races in Pennsylvania and Ohio potentially in play there in the Senate, he just keeps blowing up his party's own chances, which is why I hope they let him keep talking as much as possible.
Oh, Joe Manchin wants to ride on the sanity train for a little bit here, huh?
Yeah, he does, it appears.
We're not forgetting the trillions that he was going along with. We're not forgetting it, Clay. He thinks I know he's not up in this cycle, but Mr. Manchin.
That's my theory. I got one for you for 24, 2 years from now. Early
because
prediction.
He went along with the socialists this time. And
He did.
West Virginia, we're not letting anyone in West Virginia forget about that.
So I said that I had a theory. Joe Manchin was furious at Joe Biden for saying out loud what the energy policies of the Democrat Party have been for a long time, which is we no longer have any interest in coal. And, Buck, my great-grandfather died of black lung disease. He was a coal miner. My grandfather, who I was named after, Clay Travis, moved down here from Muhlenberg County, Tennessee, to the Nashville area to work in the DuPont factory, which is why my family's here now. So I have a lot of coal miners in my history, recent history, relatively speaking, in the Travis family. Not easy jobs, Buck.
21% of electricity generation in the United States, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration website. 21% comes from coal.
Yeah.
So just think about, they're talking about, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and millions of barrels here and there. And yeah, that can have some short-term effect on price. You were to take offline.
Yep.
20 and people say, they'll phase it in. Yeah, but at what cost? Wind generation, all these things they're talking about are going to be so much more expensive. And at a time already of elevated inflation and pricing, to even discuss this as something that would be good for, there's a natural movement away toward natural gas and other cleaner versions of energy that is occurring, but it's marketplace driven. And the notion that, when you're getting 20% of your energy from something, to dump all over it. But then again, they do this with fossil fuels as well, where we get, I'm trying to think what the total percentage is. 90-something% of our energy comes from fossil fuel-derived sources.
So my theory on this, and we know that a lot of you are involved in the coal industry who are listening to us.
It's 80%, by the way, sorry. 20% renewable. Go ahead.
I think a lot of people out there, Joe Manchin suddenly teed off on Joe Biden. And we know that, unfortunately, Manchin made an awful decision to support the, and I'm using air quotes here, Inflation Reduction Act, which actually is going to increase the overall levels of inflation in our country. But I think this statement, as strongly worded as it was, gave us a clue of what Manchin's going to do, Buck. I think he, after this midterm election, presuming Democrats take back control of the Senate, I think he's going to flip to the Republican Party and run as a Republican in 2024. Because I see it this way. I'm looking ahead a couple of years. He only has three options. He can run as a Democrat, and he's going to get trounced. He barely won in 2018, which was a great year for Democrats in a midterm. Now he's going to be in a presidential election cycle, potentially with Trump on the ticket for Republicans. And Trump won, I believe West Virginia supported Trump more than any state, maybe Wyoming. They're both right up there in terms of the amount he won the states by. So he has 0% chance, I believe, running as a Democrat. He could decide to retire, and maybe he will decide to retire. But if he wants to remain in politics, his only option is to flip to the Republicans, and I don't think he can do it for 24. I think he has to do it early, prove that he's actually willing to support Republican policies. I think that's what he's doing.
But he should get primaried. So even if he tries this, not letting it go.
No,
not letting it go. People were suffering. He sold out. He sold out his state. He sold out the Republicans in his state by going along with the reckless spending of the Biden administration, their green energy, hundreds of billions of dollars. It was lunacy. So let's
this is what I think he's doing.
Oh, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we're putting out the bat signal for a great Republican challenger to beat him in if he does what you're saying, to beat him in the GOP primary, or just a Republican to take him out of the general. That's what needs to happen.
And you might see a situation like what we're seeing in Utah right now, where Democrats don't even put up a challenger, and they run Manchin as an independent, and then he's promising that he's going to caucus with Democrats if he were to lose in the Republican primary. So it's going to get, I think it's going to get super messy in West Virginia. And to me, that statement from Manchin was letting you know that he's not interested in just retiring and kind of sliding off into oblivion. I think he wants another 6-year term.